Welcome to the All About You podcast. My name is Sheila and I am your host. In this podcast, I invite people to tell their stories of their travels, hobbies, and passions. These podcasts are also now available on my All About You YouTube channel. So if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story. Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. Hopefully, where you are listening to this podcast, the sun is shining and thoughts of holidays are in your mind. Have you ever thought of moving permanently to another country? Have you ever been to Spain on holiday and had thoughts about buying a permanent home or a holiday property? If so, we have the man with all the hints, tips and answers to buying a property in Spain. My guest today is Graham Hunt, the owner of Valencia Property Limited. So Graham, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a bit warm today, Graham, I have to say.
Yes.
A lot of people come to Spain on holiday and think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to live here permanently? Let's talk about why people would pick Valencia as opposed to Madrid, Barcelona. What is it about Valencia that attracts people?
Well, firstly, when you compare it to Madrid and Barcelona, Valencia isn't as big as Madrid and Barcelona, so you don't feel as overwhelmed. There's 4 million people in Madrid, 3 million people in Barcelona, just under 1 million in Valencia. But that gives you everything to do in Valencia. It's not as if you go to one of these big cities and say, I'm missing out because I can't do this. We've got theatre, we've got art, we've got everything like that. But at the same time, it's about half the price of Madrid. And it's about 2/3 the price of Barcelona. These places are really expensive these days. And people come to Valencia and go, well, that's affordable. The climate's great, as you say, a bit warm today, but the climate's great in general. And when you go out, you just think there's so much to do, and it's a nice place to be.
I think one of the things about Valencia is we've got the beach, we've got the historic, we've got all the cultural things that continue through the winter, because I think that's the big thing, isn't it? What can you do in the winter months?
Yeah, if you go to the Costas, for example, you know, the traditional place in the sun person, they'll go to somewhere down on the Costas and they're presented with this beautiful thing, and they're not told it's closed for 10 months of the year, there's nobody there. Now, if you want a private beach, that's great, because effectively you've got a private beach for 10 months of the year. But in Valencia, you've got the city beach, but like I live 18 kilometres inland from Valencia, I don't actually live in the city. You know, you get out of the city and it's totally green and everything. It's not like you go further south to Murcia and Almeria, and basically they're deserts. You know, you actually get out into the countryside and it's gorgeous as well. So there's a bit of everything. And as you probably know, an hour away in the winter, you can go skiing as well.
Graham, let's talk about the nationalities that are currently moving to Valencia.
Okay, so this year, I actually did a blog post about it recently. The Dutch are winning our client race by far, because there's been a change in the tax laws in Holland, which means the whole of the Netherlands, they keep telling me this, I get Holland wrong. There's been a change in the tax law in the whole of the Netherlands, which means buying a second property has become almost impossible because of the tax situation, that you get taxed a lot. However, you can buy anywhere else in Europe and you don't get taxed a lot. So everyone in Holland has gone, oh, I can work from anywhere. I'm not going to pay €1 million for something like in Amsterdam, for example, and I get a really good lifestyle. I'm moving down to Valencia. And a lot of Dutch people are choosing Valencia. Last year, our number one client base was Americans, or were Americans, which is the first year that's ever happened. And I've said this before on my podcast, that the reason is Trump might have gone, but the situation that he created hasn't gone, and people just want to get out.
It's interesting you should talk about the Americans, because being in various WhatsApp groups on Facebook, years ago it was a trickle of Americans, okay, thinking about moving to Valencia, tell me about the healthcare, the schools, etc. Now it's probably tens every single day.
Yeah, and most of them, the worries are, is it safe? And it's like, well, yeah, you don't even have to think about that here. It's like, we have had clients who have moved from America when they got to that point of a local school shooting or something like that, you know, an active shooter somewhere, and they just go there, but for the grace of God, why? I could have been in that mall, my kids could have been at the school, I could have been in that cinema. And they just have to think about safety everywhere. The other one is healthcare. It's, yes, they need private healthcare when they come, and that even with the golden visa, but it's so cheap compared with America. I get my mind blown every single time they tell me how much it costs them for basic healthcare. For example, I've got one client who said his healthcare in the States was 5 times as much as it is here, but also with an excess of 10,000. So he had to pay the first 10,000 of any treatment before the insurance company even stepped in. It doesn't take much to get to 10,000 in the States, but even so, that's ridiculous.
I mean, as a side note to that, my experience of the Spanish health system, locally and in the hospital, has been 5-star. Absolutely. I cannot praise it enough.
Yeah.
So, number 1, we've got people from the Netherlands. Number 2, we've got the Americans. Where are the Brits now in this lineup?
Well, let's go to the B word. Brexit's made a big difference. We used to get a lot of people who come over with 150, 200,000 and retire here and live off the pensions and things. That market has totally disappeared. And the reason is, am I allowed to swear on this?
Go for it, and then I'll
You'll
check
edit
it out.
later.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I won't swear very badly then. British pensions are absolutely fecking awful. And therefore they don't reach the minimums required for the non-lucrative visa. So therefore the British people can only come over for 90 days out of any 180. Now if you want to retire to a country, not possible, because you're going, well, I want to spend 5 months in the winter or in the sun. Yeah. Well, which are the bad 5 months? Well, you can't. You can only stay for 3 months. So which are the bad 3 months in that 5? Well, you don't know in Britain. It could be any time. It could be 8 months. Yeah.
I think the thing is, it used to be the Brits were buying over here because a short 2-hour flight, Ryanair, EasyJet example, into London Gatwick or from Alicante to the north of England. So the Brits, it was obviously ideal for them. So let's talk about the expectation then.
Can we just go back to that Brits thing?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
There's two parts to it. So that market has disappeared, the pensioners who 150, 200,000, because they're not going to buy a holiday home for that much. They want to actually live in the place. However, people who are going to spend 300, 400,000 are now spending 500,000 more and getting the golden visa and coming to live here. So we actually get more British clients at the higher end than we used to get, because it's like, yeah, give me a Schengen visa so I can keep my rights within the European Union. So we've lost at the bottom part of the market, but we've gained at the higher end of the market.
So Graham, let's talk about what is this golden visa?
Okay, golden visa, you spend 500,000 on a property or properties, or $1 million on government bonds or something like that. You know, some form of investment in Spain, and you get to stay 365 days a year without the obligation of being here for any days at all. You don't have to be here, but you've got free entry into the country as many times as you want, and you can go around the whole of the Schengen area for the same 90 out of 180 in any particular country. Yeah. Now the golden visa is an absolutely fantastic solution if you've just had your rights taken away by your government and you've got the money. Unfortunately, it cannot be with a mortgage. It's 500,000 investment. We have had people who've got a mortgage in their own country, whether that's the States, the UK or wherever, and brought that money over and invested and got the golden visa because they've still got property in their own country. But in general, you put 500,000 down, you get a golden visa, and it's a good way to live in Spain.
Interesting. So let's talk about expectation then. So you come over here for your 2-week holiday, you're lying on the beach, you know, you've got a nice cool drink, looking up at the Valencia blue sky. Oh, let's buy a property here. And if we imagine somebody has sold a 3-bedroom house in the UK, they've got money in their pocket, what should they do with it when they come over here? What is the thought process of people? This is what interests me.
If they're lying on the beach and they say, I fancy going and see some properties, I'm sorry, we're not going to do it. Yeah, because our clients book in well before coming over, right? But the thing is, if you like Valencia and you're lying down on the beach, or you're coming over and you're eating great food and things and you really like it, start planning. If you've got the money, start planning, because really the first thing you've got to say is, what do I want out of this move? What type of life do I want? Now, if you're going to be living here, you need the ability to work here in general, which unfortunately a lot of British people have lost. We hope that this it's actually this month now because we're in June, the new digital nomad visa is going to come out, which will allow people who can work from anywhere to be able to live in Spain and become a resident here. The details were put out in November last year, and it should go through Parliament this month, maybe next month, we'll see. And that will be interesting for people from Britain, because at the moment there's a lot of people who are stuck in that I can't go to work in Spain because I can't get a work permit. Yeah. Now, if you can work from anywhere with your job, it makes it much more logical to go and live in a place like Valencia than live in a bedsit on the edge of London paying a ridiculous amount for a very small space and having to commute everywhere.
Since the pandemic, loads of co-working spaces have opened up. They all vary in price, whether your company's going to pay for you and they sort of pay a monthly pass, or whether you're an individual, you're renting a space to have a meeting for 3 hours once a week or whatever. So Valencia is very well geared up for people who don't want to work at home, who want that flexible working office environment. So that's one thing that's created a whole new business here.
Yeah, and not only in the city. You go to any of the villages and towns around, fast internet broadband means there's co-working spaces in those as well. And obviously, you go to my town, for example, and you get a lot more for your money than you would in Valencia itself, but you're 15 minutes from the city. So we find that a lot of people are going out into these gorgeous villages, say Nácara, for example. It's got its own broadband system in Nácara. And so they're living in penthouse apartments and they're buying them for 70,000 and working from home.
Graham, what type of properties are the most sought out?
We always go with the Pareto principle, really. It's always an 80-20. Yeah. And at the moment, it's 80% apartments in the city and 20% everything else. Yeah. So this week, for example, we've signed for 2 apartments in the city, both going to be Golden Visa clients. One has already bought over 500,000 and the other one is 370, but they'll buy another apartment to give them a rental income from somebody as well. These are Americans looking at large apartments in the Ensanche area near the riverbed, you know, in the let's say posher parts of Valencia. They're looking at nice houses, big flats. Some want to do renovations, some want it already renovated. But everyone's looking for an apartment. And what do people look for in an apartment? Outside space, if possible. So you've got, let's say, not even a big terrace, just enough to stand out on or sit out on with a chair and read a book and have a coffee in the morning and things like that, because the street essentially becomes your outside space. And anything that's got a terrace gets snapped up, and it's obviously more expensive. The areas, people love Ruzafa, people like the old town. Monte Olivet is quite popular. Down here in near the beach, the Cabanyal is very popular. The Patacona not so much, because people see it as a bit too modern. They want more of the old style. And then the 20%, they're looking at villas with pools, gardens, and usually walking distance into a town. So somewhere like Leliana is very, very popular because there are loads of villas which are walking distance into the town, whereas traditionally, urbanizaciones, as they're called, were built so you'd need the car. You need the car for everything. They're not so popular these days because people want to be able to get to facilities quickly.
I mean, one of the things that I've discovered since living in Valencia is people will sell their property in the UK. They've got quite a nice amount of money. They come over here, they buy something in the countryside, got a pool, a nice bit of land for the kids and the dog and everything, spend the summer absolutely fantastic. Then school starts, so mum and dad become unpaid taxi drivers, driving the kids to school, after school activities, etc. Then they often find there's a problem with utilities, septic tanks, that type of thing. And these big old properties in the country, very rural and freezing in the winter. And a lot of people have had this blissful summer, but then reality hits in the winter. And even in city apartments, because most city apartments have got marble floors, which are absolutely freezing in the winter, you really do need a pair of slippers with a thick sole. And yes, it does get cold in Valencia in the winter. There's no doubt about it. And most properties are built to keep it cool in the summer months more than insulation in the winter.
Yeah, small windows, etc., so that the sun can't get in. We always get people saying, why are all the blinds down and things like that. The blinds are down to keep the heat out when it's hot. Again, that market of people buying villas in the countryside, like in the middle of nowhere, it's sort of disappeared. Everyone wants to be connected these days, and one of the most important things is the internet connection. And buying in a field in the middle of nowhere, no. The other thing is we tend to avoid it as well because the legality of the properties that are built on rustic land in the middle of nowhere is, let's say, often questionable. And so there's no point in going to see something, yeah, I love it, I love it, I love it, that really you'd be out of your mind to buy it because it'll never be fully legal for whatever reason. Yes, some places are legal when you go in the countryside and you see this and that. It's been there for 50 years and it's fully legalised and things. But there's certain things which will never, ever get legalised. And unfortunately, we've had a case like that this week where we put a deposit down, a reserve. One of our clients put a reserve down while the lawyer did their work. And the lawyer said, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
Interesting. Okay then, so let's imagine then, Graham, we've got our family. They've been out to Valencia, had a very nice holiday. They're now back in the UK in reality, and they're thinking, yeah, actually we're going to explore the possibility of leaving the UK, selling their UK home and buying here. What would be the process? First of all, I guess they need to work out, okay, what is our lifestyle? We've got 2 young children, we need to be near schools, a supermarket, that type of thing.
Education is always the thing that, if there's a family, education is always the thing that is the most important thing. Forget the house, forget the quick internet connection. If the schools don't work, the move won't work. It's very important. If the schools don't work, the move doesn't work. So you've got to be really sure about the schools for the kids first. And one of the problems with the schools is they're all full. So you go to the international schools with kids, you've got to make sure that they're going to have room for both kids if you've got 2, not just one, because you become even more of a taxi if there's 2 schools you've got to go to in the morning and things. And that unpaid taxi thing, the further you are away from the schools, obviously, the longer your commuting distance in the morning and the afternoon. If you're 45 minutes away from the school, that's 3 hours of driving a day. You don't want to do that. So the first thing you do is you find out the schools for the kids, you get one that you're happy with, and then you start looking in that area. Not look for the house first and then try to find the schools.
Well, I have to say that's been totally enlightening to me. It's that bad trying to get kids into international schools because we're particularly talking about moving from the UK here.
Yep.
So if your child obviously does not speak Spanish, your number one will be to get them an international school.
Not necessarily. It depends on the age of the kid. If you're looking at teenagers, yes, because you don't want disruption to their education. They'll spend a year where they learn Spanish and they'll learn it really quick. But they'll spend a year, which is basically a wasted year of schooling, in the sense that at the end of a school year in Spain, if you don't pass, you're held back. So they're going to be held back. You just take that as a matter of course, because they're not going to be able to do the work at the required level because they haven't got the Spanish. So if it's a teenager, put them into an international school. Young kids, no problem whatsoever. They don't get held back. You know, they go into the school, they soak up Spanish like a sponge, no problem whatsoever.
Well, let's imagine then our family, they've decided they're going to make the move. They get in contact with you and they say, okay, we are a family of 4. This is the age of our kids. Da, 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 da. And presumably they say, okay, we are looking for an apartment, we're looking for a house, we're looking for a chalet. What is the process?
Well,
because they're in the UK and you're here, so...
Yeah, the thing we always start off with is a video call usually, like a Skype call or something like that, so we can actually talk to each other and get to know them. We then send them an article which is called The First Step to Buying Property in Valencia, which has got a form on it which said, these are my must-haves, these are my would-likes, and these are my definitely shouldn't have. The definitely shouldn't is like cables over the house, you know, 5th floor without a lift if it's an apartment, things like that, you know. And people say that gets them concentrated on what they want. Now, if you only fill in a couple of things and say, yeah, I want an apartment and it's got to be this price and that, you don't know what you're looking for. You know? If you say, well, we're not decided whether we want an apartment or a house yet, you don't know what you're looking for. So when you come over to look at properties, you're not going to find it because you haven't got a clue what you want. So if you don't know firstly whether you want a house or whether you want an apartment, that's a bit of a red flag. Yeah? If you're pretty sure about what you want, then we can go, okay, and we dig down further into those people's requirements. Now, you go onto Idealista or any of the portals in Spain for, the right move type places. And let's just say Valencia, for example. At the moment, there are 7,700 places for sale in Valencia. That's not actually true. There are 7,700 listings, of which many are repeat listings. There's probably about between 2,000 and 3,000 for sale. Of those 2,000 and 3,000, that doesn't mean you've got a choice of 2,000 or 3,000 apartments. Because if you've got your requirements down to a T, you've probably got a choice of 4 or 5 that are for sale at any one time. And when somebody comes over and says, yeah, we want to see at least 20 places, we always say to them, well, you don't know what you want then. Because there aren't 20 places. If somebody's got specific requirements, there will never be 20 places that are available. So let's just say, for example, right, 2,000, 3,000 properties for sale. I want a terrace that you can put a table and chairs out on. Okay, that's 90% of the apartments have gone. Because only the first floor and the top floor tend to have terraces. You don't have other terraces. You have like a little balcony or something maybe. So that's 90% gone. So now we're talking 200 to 300 properties that are available. Okay, I don't want to be by the beach. I want to be in the Old Town, for example. Okay, which parts of the Old Town? Well, I don't really like this part, but I do like La Seu and I do like this. Okay, we're down to 10 properties maybe. Okay, I need 3 bedrooms. Oh, we're down to 4 properties. That's the actual culling to find out what somebody wants. Because if they just come over and say, yeah, I've got 200,000 and want to spend that in Valencia, that's a really difficult job for us because we haven't got a clue about what they want. The more we know about what somebody wants, the more likely we're able to find it, even if their choice is this or this. But the good thing is we're able to tell them those are unrealistic expectations when it's impossible. Because some people's requirements are impossible.
I think this is the thing, isn't it? It's peeling back the onion, as in, what are we really looking for? What is our lifestyle? Mm-hmm. If you've got 2 children of school age, are you near the school? Is there a supermarket, health centre, open space, that type of thing? Because we are talking about 365 day living.
And very importantly, when people are sending kids to the international school, for example, and they say, oh yeah, and we want a house in the countryside, not only are you a taxi for the school, you're a taxi for any event, like parties, meeting up with the friends, etc. Because the public transport doesn't get out there. Yeah, so it's like, I want to go meet my friend in Valencia, and the friends will live in Valencia, because at the international schools, they get bussed out in the morning. 90% of the kids are in the city. So it's actually usually better city living if you've got especially teenage kids who want to go out with their friends. On that note, we've got some clients at the moment who they're selling their place in La Liana. They've been there for 8 years, 9 years. They no longer use the pool. The kids are 16. They're constantly getting on the metro to go into Valencia to meet their friends. They're city people anyway. I think they came from London originally. They're city people. They like city people. It's like, we're going to buy an apartment in Valencia now, and the kids can just go out because, again, it's so safe. You've got no worries about the kids going out in Valencia on their own.
It's interesting you saying that, because somebody I know, they've got 3 children, and basically they bought an apartment, 2nd floor, huge terrace, I mean huge, Mercadona, which is one of the big supermarkets, underneath, mm-hmm. the school across the road. So basically the mum could stand on the terrace and literally watch the children walk into the school. They start that school at like 4 and they leave at 18. Mm-hmm. And she's had 3 children go through that school, and I just think they absolutely nailed it.
They were very Spanish about it. That's what the Spanish do. I mean, we've always said if a Spanish person, especially a Valencian, if they could live above where they worked and have a fireman's pole down into their work, they would. You know, as long as on their block there's a Mercadona, tobacconist back in the day, a decent bar or cafe and a restaurant, they'd never leave the block.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have a car. They would be so happy because they've got everything to hand.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Okay, Graham, let's talk about the legal process of buying. Mm-hmm. How scary is it?
Not at all if you get a decent lawyer.
I mean,
terribly scary if you don't.
I mean, your company, you do end to end. You know, literally, you'll find the property, point mm-hmm. them in the right direction, line up the right lawyers, etc.
Well, this is the thing. We only work with lawyers that we know do a good job, but they're totally independent from us. And what that means is, like the case I mentioned before, if the lawyer says don't buy it, don't buy it. Even if we found the property, because we can't know everything about every property, because we'd have to do the full due diligence on every single property, and that's not going to happen. We got 300 properties for sale on our site, and we go to see a hell of a lot more properties as well. We rely on what we're told by the owners and what we're told by the agents. We'll do a bit of investigation if we think something's a bit iffy. But in the end, it's the lawyer who just does the due diligence, finds out whether there's any debts on the property, finds out whether there's any liens, encumbrances, finds out whether a road's going to be put through your garden, finds out all of those things, finds out whether the property's legal. Yeah. And if the lawyer says don't buy it, I've got no problems with that, because it's like, I'm not going to say, oh, can't you tell them to buy it? Because I know they're going to have a problem further down the line, and therefore I'm going to have a problem further down the line. Yeah,
it's going to come back and bite you.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to live here. I want to be able to walk down the street, see my clients coming the other way, say, hey, how's it going? Let's go for a coffee, And I think in 99% of cases of the clients, we do that.
So, Graham, what have you learned about the general public running your business and trying to match people with properties?
Americans are brilliant, because we use the realtor system, which is the system they use in the States, really, which is very different to the estate agent system. People in the States choose their realtor to find them a property, and that's what we do. Brits just flip from agency to agency with whoever's like advertising a property that they're interested in. So there's no loyalty whatsoever in that sense. We want loyalty from the clients, because we're going to put a hell of a lot of work in for them. Yeah, and we get that from American clients, we get it from Dutch clients, we get it from all around the world. Brits are a bit more difficult. What we have found, though, is the majority of our British clients are great. And the reason that they're great, and I go back to the B word at this time, is we don't get Brexit supporters. And the reason we don't get Brexit support is because of what I'm like on social media. And they're not going to come here if they're a Brexit supporter, because I've told them not to.
Interesting.
In very many ways, some of which involve a lot of swearing.
So, Graham, you have got your own podcast with Valencia Property. Let's talk about you doing your podcast. Why did you decide to start your podcast?
Well, I've been thinking about it for years. I actually sort of semi-started it, but it was just basically reading the articles so that people who didn't want to read could actually listen. So
you had the blog first?
Yeah, I've had the blog for 18 years, 17 years, I'm not sure, a long time.
You don't look that old, Graham.
I do, and I'm looking old. I look so old at the moment that my phone isn't recognising me when I'm doing the face thing to open it up. It's getting that bad. But anyway, I started the blog this year. Actually, not the blog, the podcast this year. I started in January, and with the idea of doing 20 episodes. And that's what we've done. We've just finished the first series. It's going into a second series at the end of this month, which will be monthly. Yeah, because it's a hell of a lot of work. Yeah, and it's brilliant. And again, I go back to Americans. Americans listen to podcasts constantly. So I decided to put out all the information that we've got in the blog in a different way. Have little conversations between everyone who works, have conversations with people who've already bought to see what their experience was and things. And it comes across really, really well for people. I think it comes across well, but they think that it really, really helps them. We had one couple who were driving down from Holland, and they listened to 17 episodes on the way. We only had 17 out at the time, which was quite good. So they listened to right from the start all the way through to the 17th episode.
So they certainly did their homework.
They're doing their homework, and this is it. It's a part of doing your homework. One of the things that we always say is we don't sell properties. Everyone's already decided they want to be here before they come across. Now, it's unusual. Sometimes we'll get people who say, yeah, I've not decided between Valencia or Lisbon or Valencia and Malaga or whatever. But in general, once people come, they've decided they want to buy a place in Valencia. Our job is to find them that place. Now, again, we go back to what are your criteria? We should be able to find them that place if the criteria are realistic. So when we're looking at a client, we're looking at somebody who's already decided to buy. So we're selling the lifestyle, the area, and finding them the right property to live that lifestyle and to live in that area. Now, yes, of course, in the end, we sell a property and we receive a commission based on selling that property. But what we do more than anything is make people comfortable with making that decision by providing them with all information. I've got to say, it's a big-headed thing. My blog is the best in Spain, possibly in the world, for getting information about buying a property in Valencia. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's nothing even close. The podcast helps with that as well. because it puts you out as an authority. You know what you're talking about, and people get to know you. Many years ago, I did a YouTube series of 100 videos about 100 things to think about when you're coming to live in Spain. And for 10 years, people have come over and say, "Oh, I've seen you on the telly." It's not the telly, it's YouTube. Yeah, and they felt they know me because they've seen my face on 100 videos telling them about this is what you need to think about coming over to Spain. And it's brutal honesty, you know. I tell people, don't come over if you're just expecting to come over and walk into a job here, because it's not going to happen and things. We're very honest about the downsides as well. And I think that resonates with people a lot.
So we've talked about your blog, we've talked about the podcast, and that's a very nice segue that you actually have been on the television.
Yes.
And I actually caught it the other day. So tell us about the TV appearance.
Well, there's various. We've worked with A Place in the Sun quite a few times. It's generally difficult working with A Place in the Sun.
Right, explain to people what A Place in the Sun is.
A Place in the Sun is a UK version of House Hunters International, which is the American program, which is people go and they want to buy a property in a certain area, so they get taken around to show them with various estate agents. And we've worked with A Place in the Sun a lot. They use us as the authority in Valencia, if you like, to help them find places, because their researchers come over 6 days before the filming. So they don't know much about it. So it's to find the right places for them to show to their clients. We work with that. We've got a couple of A Place in the Sun presenters who are interested in buying in Valencia as well, because they love it here. And hopefully, touch wood, very soon we'll be able to find one for one of them, because she really wants to come here.
Okay, now we're not going to mention any names, but I think there is a little bit of a story about one of these presenters and a glass or two of Aqua de Valencia. Let's explain what Aqua de Valencia is first.
Okay, Aqua de Valencia is a drink which is typical of here, which is essentially champagne, orange juice, and then various combinations of spirits. Wherever you get it, it can be different, but gin or vodka in general.
So it's pretty lethal.
It's massively lethal.
Yeah, I don't.
If you want to know more about it, go on to Travel Man Valencia edition with Richard Iowadi and Sarah Pascoe getting absolutely hammered in a bar in Rusafa called La Bella de Cádiz. It's very good.
I think that's a great story. So Graham, anything to add before we finish? We're going to put all the links to your blog, to your podcast, to your business. Anything else you want to add? Any hints, tips, advice, do's, don't do's?
That's a really difficult one, because my hint would always be just use us, don't bother with anyone else. But every single other estate agent in the city would go, oh, that's not fair. We understand what people want in general. If you are open about what you want, come and see us. If you're playing your cards close to your chest, we're really not interested, because we won't be able to find what you want. And generally it's because you don't know what you want if you're playing your cards close to your chest.
I mean, it is a really big decision to move to another country, whether it's a temporary move because of somebody's job, whether it's a move for retirement, or just we're done with our own country and we want to move. So it is a big thing, it's a big project. And to have somebody that you've built a relationship with before you even come to visit, understanding the process, understanding what is the current situation with regard to property.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, the current situation with regards to your rights here as well, and what you can do, what you can't do, etc. I mean, you probably know at the moment there's a big issue with UK driving licenses for people who haven't changed them over and missed the deadline and stuff. It's just knowing what's going on as well, and being able to help people negotiate those, let's say, dead ends at times, because getting something done in Spain, and especially during COVID and post-COVID, can actually be quite difficult. But knowing somebody who knows how we can get around the back. The other day, for example, Paul, who works with us, he's got a friend who's in the Civil Guard and managed to drag up somebody's NIA number from 15 years ago when they were here, which they totally lost and didn't know the number or anything, but they knew they had one. And we managed to find it for them. So that's quite useful, because it means they don't have to go through the whole application process of getting a NIA number now.
Graham, it's been fabulous. It's been interesting. It's been interesting hearing about the different nationalities coming over. I really thought Brits would be number one, so I was interested that they're not.
They always were, because obviously we're advertising to an English-speaking market, and generally because I'm British and Britain's close, we're advertising to the UK. But we had, as I say, more Americans last year, more Dutch people than Brits. I think this year we've got just as many Irish people and almost as many Australians as Brits this year.
Really? Why the Australians come in?
Valencia's a nice place to live, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say, you're very happy living here, and so am I, but I'm surprised Australia.
Listen, we get people from all around the world, and a lot of them are refugee types, but not traditional refugees. So we get Trump refugees from the States, Brexit refugees from the UK. We get Hungarian refugees from Orban, who want to move out of Budapest because it's just like when he won the election, that was the last straw. We get people from Australia because it's getting too hot or it's getting too wet. I don't know if you've seen about the floods in Australia recently. We get people from Australia and New Zealand because they want to be, if you like, in the centre of it all, which Europe is considered as. And Valencia is a good base for them, and it's a very easy place to, you know what the communications are like here. It's very easy to get to everywhere else. So Valencia is a good base for people, and that's why they're coming here. I think last year we dealt with 19 or 20 different nationalities, and this year we're pretty close to that already, and we're into May. We've actually made 40% more sales this year so far than we did in the whole of the last year, and last year was a good year.
Is that anything to do with the pandemic or political situations in all these countries?
It's a bit of everything. The pandemic has made people think YOLO, you only live once. If I'm not going to do it now, when am I going to do it? And the political situation is, let's say a clown car political situation in the UK has made a lot of people think twice about, like, why am I still here? Especially those who haven't really got that many big family ties, younger people who feel they've had their opportunities taken away from them. It's like, how can I get into Spain? As I said before, this digital nomad visa, I've got a list of people as long as my arm waiting to come over when that comes. It's absolutely ridiculous. I've got rappers and manga artists from London who will bring their whole studio over here and things because they can work from anywhere. I've got music producers. I've got all sorts of people who want to come over and live here as soon as they can. But they're all self-employed. So as soon as they get that opportunity to do it, they'll be over here. It's just ridiculous, the number of people who are trying to get out of the UK. Similarly, the States, the situation over there it's a powder keg, they all say. This isn't me saying it. This is the people who we're dealing with. And it's just like, yeah, we need to get out of there.
Graham, thank you so much for all the hints and tips. It's been fascinating.
Well, if anyone wants to see me swearing a lot, they can follow me on Twitter as well at Greyhunt, and they can ask me questions. My DMs are open on there, so any questions you've got, you can just ask me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Graham.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe on whatever platform you are using. It is free, and if you would like to tell your story, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story.